In European football, the UEFA coefficients are statistics used for ranking and seeding teams in club and international competitions. The coefficients are calculated by UEFA, who administer football within Europe. For men's competitions, three different sets of coefficients are calculated: national team coefficient, used to rank national teams, for seeding in the UEFA Euro qualifying and finals tournaments; country coefficient, used to rank the collective performance of the clubs of each member association, for assigning the number of places, and at what stage clubs enter the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League; club coefficient, used to rank individual clubs, for seeding in the UEFA Champions League and UEFA Europa League. While not discussed in this article, coefficients are calculated in a similar fashion for women's competitions such as the UEFA Women's Euro and the UEFA Women's Champions League, as well as for youth tournaments such as the UEFA Euro U21 tournament. National team coefficient. The UEFA national team coefficient is derived from the results of each European national football team, and only calculated by UEFA every second year in November. Defined as being the point of time when all UEFA nations have completed the qualification stage of the upcoming World Cup or European Championship tournament. The purpose of calculating the coefficients is to compile an official UEFA rank, to be used as seeding criteria for the European nations, when drawing up qualification groups and the final tournament groups of the European Championship. Previously, up until 2006, the UEFA national team coefficient was also used for the seeded draw of World Cup qualification groups in Europe, while the draw for final tournament groups of the World Cup was always seeded on the basis of the official FIFA World Rankings. The reason why UEFA stopped using UEFA national team coefficients for the seeding of World Cup qualification groups was a request from FIFA to only use the official FIFA ranking for all seeded draws related to the World Cup tournament. Old ranking and calculation method. It was first introduced in 2003 and used for seeding the 2004 European final tournament and 2006 World Cup qualification. Until the end of the Euro 2008 tournament, the UEFA national team coefficient was calculated by dividing the number of all points scored by the number of all matches played, in the last two qualification rounds of the World Cup or European Championship. Results from the final tournaments, playoff matches and friendly games were all ignored. In those cases where a nation did not take part at one of the two latest qualifying rounds, due to being directly qualified as a host, only one qualifying round would be taken into account. If two or more nations ended up with exactly the same coefficient, the following ranking criteria was applied: highest coefficient from the matches played in the most recent qualifying competition. Biggest average goal difference per game, found by dividing the sum of all goal differences by the number of ranked matches. Highest average number of goals scored per game. Highest average number of away goals scored per game. Drawing of lots. The last three times UEFA used this calculation method was for the final UEFA coefficients in 2003, 2005 and 2007. New ranking and calculation method. On May 20, 2008, UEFA announced changes to the coefficient ranking system. The ranking will continue to be calculated every second year in November, but under the new system, teams now gain ranking points for each game played in the most recently completed full cycle of both the World Cup and European Championship, with addition of ranking points for each game played at the latest completed half cycle. Ranking points for all games played inside those 2.5 cycles will be awarded according to the rules listed below. 10,000 points are awarded for each match played, regardless of the match result. Each team earns an additional 30,000 for winning and 10,000 for drawing. In case of a game decided by penalty shootout, the points are allocated as a draw, with the winner of the shootout gaining an additional 10,000 points. Each match at the final tournament, or playoffs to determine qualification, are also granted some extra bonus points, ranging from 6,000 points for all playoffs or World Cup group stage games, to 38,000 points for playing a final. 501 points are earned for each goal scored, and -500 are given for each goal conceded. Coefficients are calculated for each 2.5 cycle, by dividing the sum of earned points with the number of games played. When calculating the overall average coefficient for the cycles, the latest full cycle and half cycle will each have double the weight, compared to the oldest full cycle. Special arrangements are in place for those nations that did not participate in one of the previous qualifying tournaments due to hosting the competition. Final ranking in 2009, the coefficients from November 2009, to be used for the seeding and pot placements in the draw for UEFA Euro 2012 qualification groups, were calculated for each country by averaging 40% of the average points per game, earned in the 2010 World Cup qualifying stage. 40% of the average points per game, earned in the 2008 Euro qualifying stage and final tournament. 20% of the average points per game, earned in the 2006 World Cup qualifying stage and final tournament. The new official UEFA coefficients were calculated for the first time in November 2009, final ranking in 2011. The coefficients to be calculated for UEFA Euro 2012 final tournament were found by averaging 40% of the average points per game, earned in the 2012 Euro qualifying stage. 40% of the average points per game, earned in the 2010 World Cup qualifying stage and final tournament. 20% of the average points per game, earned in the 2008 Euro qualifying stage and final tournament. The seeding and pot placements of the qualified teams in the draw for Euro 2012 were based on UEFA coefficients, determined on November 16, 2011, which are as follows. Final ranking in 2013, the coefficients from 2013, to be used for the seeding and pot placements in the draw for UEFA Euro 2016 qualification groups, were calculated for each country by averaging 40% of the average ranking points per game earned in the 2014 FIFA World Cup qualifying stage. 40% of the average ranking points per game earned in the UEFA Euro 2012 qualifying stage and final tournament. 20% of the average ranking points per game earned in the 2010 FIFA World Cup qualifying stage and final tournament. The seeding and pot placements of the teams in the draw for UEFA Euro 2016 qualifying were based on UEFA coefficients, determined on December 12, 2013, which are as follows. Country coefficient. The country coefficient is used to rank the football associations of Europe, and thus determine the number of clubs from an association that will participate in the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League. The UEFA ranking determines the number of teams competing in the season after the next, not in the first season after the publication of the ranking. Thus, the rankings at the end of the 2013 Euro 14 season determine the team allocation by association in the 2015 Euro 16 UEFA season. However, the actual teams that will be participating are determined at the end of the 2014 Euro 15 season when the individual association classifications and national cups are finalized. This coefficient is determined by the results of the clubs of the associations in the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League games over the past 5 seasons. 2 points are awarded for each win by a club, and 1 for a draw. Results determined by extra time do count in determining the allocation of points, but results determined by penalty shootouts do not affect the allocation of points, other than for bonus points given for qualification into the latter rounds of the Champions League or the Europa League. The number of points awarded each season is divided by the number of teams that participated for that association in that season. This number is then rounded down to 3 decimal places. To determine a country's coefficient for a particular season, the coefficients for the last 5 seasons are added. Bonus points are added to the number of points scored in a season. Bonus points are allocated for clubs that reach the quarter-finals, semi-finals, or final of either the UEFA Champions League or the UEFA Europa League. Clubs that qualify for the group stage of the Champions League. Clubs that qualify for the round of 16 of the Champions League. Current ranking. The ranking below takes into account of each association's performance in European competitions from 2010 Euro 11 to 2014 Euro 15, with the 2014 Euro 15 season currently taking place. The final ranking at the end of the 2014 Euro 15 season will be used to determine the number of places for each association in the 2016 Euro 17 UEFA Champions League and 2016 Euro 17 UEFA Europa League. Note: starting from the 2015 Euro 16 season, all associations will have a maximum of 3 teams entering the Europa League. As of July 16, 2014, the coefficients are as follows. 1. The winners of the League Cups of England and France are given a place in the UEFA Europa League by special permission from UEFA. 2. The Liechtenstein Football Association does not organise a national league competition as it does not have the necessary amount of national clubs. As a result, the only competitor from Liechtenstein in European competitions is the Liechtenstein Cup winners, who qualify for the UEFA Europa League. UEFA uses this coefficient system to decide which teams gain automatic entry to the group stage and which teams must go through qualifying. The teams who occupy the top 3 league places in the countries ranked 1 to 3 in UEFA competition gain automatic entry into the group stages for the following: Sony Euro unregistered trademark S Champions League competition. The first and second placed teams in the countries ranked 4 to 6 also gain automatic entry, as do the champions in the countries ranked 7 to 12. The Champions League holders automatically get the chance to defend their title in the following: Sony Euro unregistered trademark S competition. Further information on Liechtenstein's status and similar cases. According to the UEFA regulations, a national league needs to consist of at least 8 clubs to be considered valid, otherwise no participants of such a league will be allowed to enter European competitions. There are only 7 clubs that are active in Liechtenstein, all of which play in neighbouring Switzerland's league competitions. Note: prior to the introduction of the Welsh Premier League in 1992, Wales also had a single participant, the winner of the Welsh Cup, in the European competitions. History. Ranking has been published by UEFA since 1979 to identify the number of participants for each country in the UEFA Cup after the reorganisation of the Intercities Fairs Cup in 1971. No calculation of coefficients took place prior to that. Later, for statistical purposes, various rankings were introduced to portray the history of competitions. Because the Intercities Fairs Cup was limited only to certain clubs and/or by invitation, no coefficient calculation was necessary. According to the prorated calculation system, only 4 leagues have succeeded in being the top European league. Due to the Heysel Stadium disaster, all English teams were banned from UEFA competitions in 1985, and so the First Division didn't gain any coefficient points until the ban was lifted after 5 seasons, directly affecting the ranking of the First Division and then the Premier League for 9 years from 1986 to 1994. Top in 1985, England's was unranked in 1990, and would not regain the top position until 2008. The table shows the ranking of nations with respect to the total number of years leading in Europe. As of May 24, 2014, club coefficient. The club coefficient rankings are determined by the results of clubs in the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League over the previous 5 seasons, as well as by the coefficient of the club's association. The club coefficient is the sum of the points earned by the club over the 5 seasons plus 20% of the club's association coefficient. The clubs receive 2 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and no points for a defeat in games of the main stages of the Champions League and the Europa League. Results determined after extra time are included in this method, however results determined after penalty shootouts are not. Bonus points for entering the Europa League group stage are not additional to win-draw points. They provide a minimum points allowance for participating clubs, whereas bonus points for entering the Champions League group stage are additional to win-draw points. Qualifying round results are only taken into account if the team is eliminated in one of the rounds. Otherwise, the qualifying round results are taken into account only for the calculation of the association's coefficient and are halved. The clubs do not receive any points for elimination in the Champions League third qualifying round or the playoff because those teams move to the Europa League and receive points from participation in that competition. This ranking is used by UEFA to determine a club's seeding in club competition draws, including the preliminary and first rounds of the Champions League, and the preliminary, first and second rounds of the Europa League. Before 1999, a number of strong teams in the UEFA Cup was seeded such that those teams did not meet in the first two rounds. To determine these teams, the sum of the ratio of the number of points achieved to the number of games played by each team was calculated for the past 5 years. UEFA Team Ranking. The top 25 clubs as of July 3, 2014 are as follows. Top club by period, top-ranked clubs in each 5-year period listed by year, top-rated clubs listed by number of times they were top-ranked over a 5-year period. Criticisms. The UEFA coefficient system has been criticized for being likely to preserve the status quo for rankings and seedings, as well as for favoring teams from stronger nations. In July 2014, Celtic manager Ronnie Deila said that it is stupid the Scottish coefficient is not regarded as good enough. See also, FIFA World Rankings, references. External links, official UEFA rankings, league and club coefficients at XS4 All NL, UEFA Access List.